Okay, camera's rolling. Okay, so I know about Jill Stein through the articles I've read, with the interviews I've seen. I know about Jill Stein that she graduated from Harvard in '72 and Harvard Medical School in '79, and that she was specializing in internal medicine. What happened in the lost years? What happened through '73 to...
Oh.
This is not about politics, this is about
Oh,
a
thank
woman.
you. Oh, yeah. What a nice change. Yeah, I've been
So
talking
tell me about the
politics
4
for-
lost years.
The 4, well, they were in medical school. You mean between 72 and 79?
Well,
Yeah, it was 5
medical
years.
school is usually 3 years.
No, 4.
4?
Right, so there was one lost year
Okay.
where I was playing music. I was a professional musician for a year and decided
Similar, I love it.
Yeah, really? Yeah, no, it was too hard. I had to drop out of music and go to medical school because I just couldn't do it.
I have a feeling that you have an IQ that's probably over 140. And it was too hard?
Playing
You
music?
seem so...
Oh, well.
Music, oh.
Music, yeah, I was playing music.
What do you play?
I play guitar, I used to play a little bit of keyboard and percussion.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, someday when you're not in politics, we'll...
we'll have a jam session, yeah.
I started out to be a jazz musician.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yeah. That was a
And
long
what
time.
happened?
Life got in the way.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to earn a living.
Sure.
Yeah, especially if you
Sure.
want to play real
So,
music.
so what I really want to know about is Jill Stein, the young lady that was born in a Chicago suburb, okay? First 18 years of her life before she went to Harvard, Chicago was a hotbed of creativity. It was also a hotbed of protest because by the time she was 18 years old, Abby Hoffman was in town.
Right.
Were you there at the riots or you had already gone off to school?
You know, the riots, I think, were like 67, 68?
Well, it was a Democratic convention, which was 68.
Yeah, right.
You were 18 or approaching
Yes,
18.
that's right. So I believe I was there, I mean, in Chicago, but I wasn't there at the riots. I mean, I wasn't ready to go there. I was ready to protest the Vietnam War
Okay,
and did that throughout high school,
okay.
but
Active? Carry
otherwise,
signs? Did you speak at people? Did you yell? Did you
I
scream?
didn't speak and I didn't yell.
Oh,
You know, that
tacit.
wasn't something I was gonna do. I was a very good girl.
Tacit.
Oh, yeah, I was brought up to be very diplomatic and not threatening and, you know, just play by the rules.
Tell me about your parents.
My father was a small business lawyer and my mother was a homemaker.
Okay.
And, you
He
know,
was
so
in-
I got all the advantages of being a middle-class life in the, you know, in a middle-class family in the 1950s and 60s when life was very good to middle-class families. Went to great
Absolutely.
schools,
Absolutely it was.
Highland Park High School, it was like terrific.
Okay, so you had a strict middle class religious family.
Jewish.
Well, that I knew, but religious or?
Well, I was confirmed at a synagogue, North Shore Congregation, Israel.
Okay.
And, you know, when I actually went away my junior year in high school on the Experiment in International Living. I just went away for a summer and met some socialists and went to Sweden, and that was sort of it for organized religion for me. That was kind of the end of that road, but it had a huge influence on me growing up.
See,
Huge.
that's not anything I've read in the papers.
Yeah, well, you know, if you read the interviews with in the Jewish newspapers, they cover that.
Okay.
They cover that. Yeah, that I was very religious as a kid growing up. I brought religion to my family actually, because
Okay.
I got so in. I was in the children's chorus and sang lots of music, played lots of Hebrew and Yiddish folk music, and what else? You know, I went to Sunday school every Sunday and loved the Old Testament stories.
Typical middle class.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. It was a good time.
It was a very good time.
Good time. So you graduated high school.
And I think there was a real sense of community and that I took out of that, you know,
Okay.
as a kid, a sort of obligation to do justice and love mercy. You know, that was like the watchword of that community, and
Okay.
that got into me.
All right. Family, brothers, sisters.
2 older sisters and a younger brother.
Okay. Are they still at their decided professions or
Yep.
retired or
Yeah, no, they're still
still working dog
working
dogs?
away.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. They are mostly East Coast, Chicago and East.
Okay. Okay, so let's fast forward to Harvard. Memory serves me that women were not admitted to Harvard until just about the time that you went.
Exactly, that's when the change happened.
Right.
Right, I was at Radcliffe for the first year,
Okay.
and it was like a totally different universe than when we merged with Harvard.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a real loss,
Right.
actually.
We can debate that.
Ha! Were you there?
No, but my father was the first male matriculant on Radcliffe.
He was, you're kidding, your
No.
father went to Radcliffe?
It was 1941. It was the Navy was conducting officers candidate school, and it was at Radcliffe.
Oh, that's very interesting.
But this isn't about me; it's about you. Okay, so well, I'm a theatrical producer. I produce plays about strong women. So believe me, I've searched the Seven Sisters back and forth, and they're great schools. They're fabulous schools. But I can't imagine that Harvard wasn't a real challenge.
It was a real challenge in all kinds of ways, and it was a great education. Radcliffe, though, was there was a real sense of community at Radcliffe that there really wasn't at Harvard. I mean,
Okay.
and I went there during transition years, also during the protest years, and that was fun. You know, it was a very kind of countercultural place to be back then. Now it's like the establishment, you know, ironclad. It's a very daunting place right now. I went there really during the good
I look at all
years.
the artists and great writers and people that came out of Radcliffe
Yeah.
back then when writing was an art. And I miss that. I miss the writers of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, as I'm sure you do. What's your favorite novel?
Love in the Time of Cholera.
Okay. I was thinking more, of course, I was trying to get into your head, right?
Oh, in my
Into
head.
your head. I would say Don Quixote, you know, Man of La Mancha, Don Quixote
Oh,
has
okay.
got to be somewhere in the top 5.
See, I'm not a reader. I'm
Okay.
like totally not a reader. I'm like I guess by nature and training, I'm a policy wonk and a science wonk. So
Okay.
I like read for the facts, and for, you know, most of my life, I have not been able to,
That comes across, but you do have an artistic quality about you.
which comes more through the music than the,
Okay.
you know, I'm really into folk music and ethnic music and
Okay.
stuff like that,
Okay.
and poetry, but not,
Well, I see somewhere where you're a poet, and I read a couple of your poems.
how did you see them?
I'm actually a playwright myself, so you know, I don't look at poems except as part of.
Oh, part of what
Dialogue.
you do. Yeah, that's right. No, I approach politics like it's a song.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, absolutely.
Um,
And organizing like it's theater, because it is.
okay, so what was your undergraduate degree?
Social relations, which was anthropology, psychology, and sociology.
Okay, so with that, you could have been a guidance counselor in school, or
Right, or an anthropologist. I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist actually when I went to college.
well, being a psychiatrist, then you still have to go to medical school. Okay, so you
Yeah.
took a year off. You made your way in the world as a musician, at least you tried.
Yeah.
And then you said, well, maybe medical school's easier than this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So describe
exactly.
medical school.
Well, you know, I realized that trying to be an artist in a commercial world was going to be a very frustrating thing.
Okay.
And so, you know, I decided I would rather just do music
Mhm.
as a community thing.
Okay.
And medical school was very tough. I mean, I went to Harvard Medical School, which is one of the most brutal places to go to medical school. It's not very community oriented. It back then was intensely, what shall I say, just sort of traditional medicine oriented. And I went there thinking I would do sort of, you know, public health, and I quickly got talked out of it because, you know, there was no sort of, that wasn't what Harvard Medical School was about. So I came out of it an internist. And my real intent in going to medical school was to be able to use the healthcare system to build communities. There were a series of sort of experiments in community health going on at the time.
Okay.
In the Mississippi Bayou, especially, these were where community health centers were first being established. They were great things, and they really saw themselves as sort of social uplift and economic development, really. And they would just use the healthcare system as a way to bring communities together. They had a much broader agenda than just traditional medicine, and they defined health much more broadly. And they included the arts and just all those ways that communities get connected. And that was sort of what made me really interested in going to medical school, where it would be a place to bring together the healing power of the arts and music together with, with traditional health and economic development and broad education.
Why don't people realize, I mean, coming from the arts myself, I was an arts administrator for many years.
Uh-huh.
Number one, we know that the arts already elevates the kids educationally. It's also,
Yes. Oh,
as you
yeah.
said, a healing process.
Oh, it is, totally.
There are people that used to come into my theater
Yeah.
and thank me for being there.
Oh, amazing.
That they couldn't deal with the world. They needed that 2 hours of flight somewhere, and it made them feel so much better. Is anything being done in medicine right now to help things like that? Well, are you still practicing as a doctor?
I'm practicing political medicine now,
I know that.
full-time.
That's what I know about you.
Yeah.
You still have your license.
I do have my license, yes. And they even agreed to renew my license despite my being arrested 3 times. And that has been like a major, sort of dialogue between me and the medical license board for the last few months. But they seem to be sort of comfortable with the nature of my arrest. So
Okay.
yes, I do still have a license.
Tell me about your husband.
He is a doctor, and we got together we were both doing our residency, and I thought he had to be anything but a doctor because he didn't carry a clipboard and he was always hovering around patients on respirators, so I thought he was a respiratory therapist.
Okay. Okay.
But it turned out he was a surgeon. So
What is he a specific type of surgeon or just a general surgeon?
he is a transplant surgeon. Yeah,
Okay.
he does some trauma too.
All right.
Yeah, so.
And obviously he approves of what you do.
Yes, he does, and I should say, to his credit, he does more primary care than I do. He does a lot of medicine in South America and in Nicaragua and in
Is he with Doctors
Peru.
Without Borders?
He's actually with just smaller programs.
Okay.
Yeah, Bridges is one of them in Nicaragua, and the one in Peru, I don't remember the name offhand, but these are little programs, they're grassroots programs, and they do great stuff.
Your children?
Are grown, and one is 29 and in medical school, actually finishing right now.
Okay.
And the other one, and I'm glad to say he's in Massachusetts. The other one came back to Massachusetts recently. He's 26, and he's actually going to medical school. And they decided to do that themselves.
Could open your own clinic at some point.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's follow this tilting at windmill scene. Not that you read Don Quixote, but you know the story.
I hear about it. My husband is a big reader.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So why does a nice Jewish girl from Chicago suburbs, who has nothing but the brightest future in the world, okay, look at her, she's an internist, she's a female Greg House, and her husband is a successful surgeon that travels all over the world. She's got 2 great kids that go to medical school. Time out for golf? I don't know. Go to concerts? Oh, sure. Probably part of the Boston society world. Okay, so 20 years ago you had a little bit of a problem and it changed your life. You want to tell me about that?
Actually, I never kind of was into that scene. I was much more a community, a grassroots kind of community person. I really
Okay.
saw myself in the mold of the Mississippi Bayou Community Health Center. That was kind of my scene, and that was always my direction. But I was still a good little girl, and I did not, I didn't challenge the system, and I didn't stand up and fight in a way that could get you into trouble. I didn't do that. And in 91? No, 91. In 1991, I had a health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I tore a blood vessel. I had a carotid dissection,
Right.
which I should have died from. It's like it totally clouded off the circulation to the left side of my brain. And I had terrible pain and headaches, so there was something very weird going on. And it took a long time, it took about 3 weeks to diagnose it. And I had an MRI at Mass General, actually at one of the outlying satellite clinics. And the radiologist said to me, "Oh, there's a problem here. I'm not seeing any blood flow on the left side of your brain. Must be a problem with the machine. I better repeat this." And so he did it again. He said, "I'm still not seeing any blood flow on the left side of your brain." I said, "Oh, that's very interesting." And he said, "Okay, you can go. The radiologist will call you." And the radiologist came running out after me to say, "You got an emergency. We need to get to the hospital right away. I would call an ambulance, but there's a traffic jam. You'll get there faster if you just hop on the shuttle bus and go over to Mass General." So at any rate, I did that, and I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and then I was in bed for months because every time I would lift my arms or do anything with my upper body, I would have that pain. But it turned out it opened up, it recanalized, and I was fine. But it was like sort of living at the edge of...
that particular procedure, and I don't know about the procedure, but what you had was...
it was lethal.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was very quickly lethal. And I didn't have a symptom, I didn't have any signs
No
of stroke.
trauma or anything like that?
No. Well, there were reasons why it tore, probably because I was lifting heavy stuff, musical equipment actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably why it tore, and then the artery dissected and clotted. And I had a open so-called anastomosis from the right to the left side of my brain.
Okay.
Everybody has that until you get to be about 40. And by that time it's usually gone. Mine wasn't gone. So it was as if nothing happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that changed my life. It really made me realize it's now or never, that you really need to do what you need to do. And you don't want to sit around based on social protocol, As I was riding on the bus from the radiology department to the Mass General emergency room, I was really bummed out, and I wanted to cry. And I was thinking, "Oh no, you're not supposed to cry on the bus. You're not just supposed to sit there and sob." And I said, "Look, that's really ridiculous. I could die right now on my way to the emergency room. I'm going to indulge myself. I'm going to cry. And I'm not going to worry about sort of social rules that don't really speak to the heart of the situation."
Okay.
So that for me was like this incredible liberation to realize that you don't have to just be constrained by meaningless rules, and that life is precious and you can't take it for granted. You got to do what needs to be done and not assume that you're going to do it another time. I had always been worried that that being a doctor, I couldn't do all these unrespectable things, like be a rabble-rouser and get arrested and things like that. But it was that experience that made me realize, don't worry about that. There are lives at stake here, whether, from the economic crisis or the planet going up in flames. There's a global emergency going on. Don't let the little rules about being good boys and girls get in your way.
Yeah, that period of time, 1991, is when the Berlin Wall, I think, came down.
Wow. Oh, that's very interesting. No, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, we didn't realize that the infrastructure of our country had eroded.
Yeah, little did we know, right?
Yeah, and then, so it was propped up by the first Iraq War, which didn't last that long,
Yeah.
and everybody loved the fact that we went to the first Iraq War. But we had 35 allies or something like that. We were just one part of the whole thing. However, I would say that 15 years of Reaganomics had severely weakened us, and but again, nobody knew it. So what I'm saying is timing is everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's really
so for
true.
you to have your epiphany in 1991 or whenever it was,
Yeah.
is you know, it's almost like it's written somewhere that it should happen.
Wow, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
timing is everything.
it really is.
Okay, because you now had the tools.
Yeah, right,
It took you 40 years to get the tools.
exactly.
But once you had the tools, and first of all, your presentation is fabulous. Did you ever do any acting? Even a little
bit,
theater?
Yeah,
Okay.
Maratza, actually.
Oh. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. But
That was it.
actors have, you know, they can get into character, and they can. You created a character. Okay, Jill Stein is your character, and you're not easy to pigeonhole.
Uh-huh.
Okay, which is good. You know, keep them guessing.
Yeah, well, it's
Uh,
funny, I mean, in my mind, I adopted a character, if you wanna call it that, but role, you
Mhm.
know, the role is to be candidate. I am not, you know, inside me, I am not a candidate. I don't do this kind of thing naturally. You know, but I felt like I had the equipment to
Okay.
do it, you know, I had all the ducks kind of lined up, and if I didn't do it, who would do it? And I mean, this was starting back in 2002 when it was the year 2000 when I first ran for office. I had to suddenly get into being candidate and run for governor, you know, and I had never run for anything and never been a member of a political party. So,
Right.
you know, I had this whole team that helped pull together how we were going to run this race at what seemed like a really opportune time. And, you know, so I have learned how to be that character of candidate, and it has, you know, in a way, it's like totally different from who I am. So all the criticism and the praise, just, you know, I don't worry about it at all because it's not me, it's the role that I feel compelled to play.
Okay, candidate,
Candidate,
carrying the message.
yeah,
You're not only the candidate, you're the messenger.
yeah.
You've created the message. I mean, this is hot stuff. You know, I mean, this is not rhetoric. This is not a speechwriter's dream. This is, you know, this comes from the heart. I know that.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going from here?
We'll find out, you know. I mean, now we're really on in uncharted waters. You
Okay.
know, all of these crises, you know, are happening right now in real time. I think, you know, where I think this is going to go is that, you know, the house of cards is going to come down. It's going to come down from its own internal rot.
Well, it's already starting in Greece and Spain.
Yeah.
Ireland is not completely out of the woods yet.
And we are not either. I mean, I think we're all headed downward. The recoveries are just.
Well, we still have the ability to print money, which they don't have.
Yeah, but you know, printing the money isn't going to get you out of a dead
No, it can
economy.
only delay the, you know, it's putting a coat of paint on a decaying wall.
And I think that young people have been really dragged over the coals, and they are going to stand up. They already are standing up, and this is really exciting. So I think there are forces here that have been unleashed that are absolutely unstoppable. The only question is when they're going to get to critical
Well,
mass.
that's you, the messenger. You got to get it there.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, exactly.
I was at the Harvey Milk Diversity Breakfast last week.
Cool.
The Stewart Milk was in town.
Huh.
And Stewart had something interesting to say. I think I gave you the video.
Okay. Great.
He said Harvey would go into the lion's den. He was Daniel. He wasn't afraid to go anywhere. He'd walk in a room with 2 people, he'd walk in a room with 5 people, 50 people, 1,000 people. And he would say, my name is Harvey Milk and I am here to recruit you. And it worked.
Yeah, that's
Okay?
great.
It worked. And I see very much of that kind of spirit in what you do.
I've learned to be afraid of the right things. Climate change, the police state, you know, the failure of our food system. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of the people and the kind of pumped up fake structures that are holding that system up.
Okay.
Those guys are just, you know, they are, what shall I say, you know, kind of the guys behind the curtain, you know, who are pretending to be,
Sure.
yeah, who are pretending to be the wizard. They ain't the wizard.
Sure.
They're not. These are, for the most
In fact,
part, really
they're slaves
pathetic.
to their masters as well.
Yeah, that's right. Whether their masters are greed or whatever, or just pathology, you know, their own psychopathology. These are like small people doing very small-minded things.
Okay.
And it's up to us who are big people, you know, and who are connected to a big community to do the right thing. We are in charge here.
Okay, so that's your message, and I know you're going to keep spreading it as long as you can. And good luck to you. Thank you very much. This has been a very pleasant,
Yeah. It's been
very,
fun.
very pleasant conversation.
Likewise, yeah. Thanks for having it.
Okay.
Okay.
We're done.
Good, great interview. Good questions.
Yeah,
Man.
those are great.
Like I said, I was going to come at you